I thought the speeches of President Obama provide a good opportunity for analyzing the rhetorical tools he employed to construct his very successful speeches. As you well know, President Obama is really a phenomenal communicator. If you key in President Obama's speeches, Google that, you'll find numerous speeches. And so I picked two of them. His inaugural address and the more recent one, his budget speech in Congress. And actually, I have before me also the inaugural address of President John Kennedy back in 1961. And there are plenty of stylistic similarities. Let me turn to President Obama's inaugural address. After he delivered his inaugural address, some local commentators, I remember, decried it as something of an anticlimax, lacking in quotable quotes compared to other well-known speakers before him. I remember one commentator specifically talk about the absence of famous quotes like Dr. Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream," or President John Kennedy's well-known quote, "My fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." So one commentator picked this up and expressed disappointment that President Obama's inaugural address was disappointing in failing to deliver quotable quotes and something of an anticlimax. Is it really so? If we could take a look at his speech, I will attempt to go over some of the details. My fellow citizens, I stand here today humbled by the task before us, grateful for the trust you have bestowed, mindful of the sacrifices borne by our ancestors. So clearly, his first paragraph, he sent a pattern. You can see a pattern. The symmetry of the several parts of the sentence. Humbled by the task before us, grateful for the trust you have bestowed, mindful of the sacrifices borne by our ancestors. A deliberate rhetorical pattern employing a clear symmetry. I thank President Obama for his service to the nation, and you notice most of the paragraphs are short, and a lot of paragraphs are short declarative sentences, because this is a speech. He was speaking to tens of thousands. As you may know, at his installation ceremony, 1 million people gathered, in Washington, D.C. So stylistically, he must speak in short, crisp sentences. And then he went on to say, 44 Americans have now taken the presidential oath. He is president number 45. And then the next paragraph I find very beautiful. And then he said, the words have been spoken. The words have been spoken, that is the presidential oath, have been spoken during rising tides of prosperity and the still waters of peace. Yet even so often, the oath is taken amidst gathering clouds and raging storms. At these moments, America has carried on not simply because of the skill or vision of those in high office, but because we the people, in capitals, we the people, have remained faithful to the ideals of our forebears and true to our founding documents. So maybe you already have noticed in this paragraph, he employed a lot of water imagery, rising tides of prosperity, still waters of peace. This is clearly water imagery. In contrast to the following sentence, the gathering clouds and raging storms. He set up a deliberate contrast. And, tides of prosperity, still waters of peace. Of course, these are a very common figure of speech. This is metaphoric use. We use it all the time in our everyday life. When you talk to your friends, I can't go out because I have a mountain of files. A mountain of files. That's a figurative use of mountain. Or if you say, I'm in a sea of trouble, I'm swimming in a sea of trouble. Sea of trouble is a figure of speech. But that was set up in marked contrast to gathering clouds and raging storms. Because the historical background to President Obama's inauguration is really quite unique. He's taking office. He took office in very hard times, harder than President John F. Kennedy. He took office, at a time when the USA has been devastated by two wars, the war in Iran and Afghanistan, a bankruptcy of their moral authority because of a lot of the breaches of international law and human rights commitments, and also once in a century financial tsunami. The US was facing a very sharp and possibly prolonged recession. So that's why he referred to gathering clouds and raging storms. And the next sentence also provides insight on the themes that he wants to bring together in his speech, and which he referred to throughout his speech. America has carried on not simply because of skill or vision of those in high office, that is the elites, the leaders like him, but because we the people is of course lifted from the American Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. We the people have remained faithful to the ideals of our forefathers and true to our founding documents. So in one paragraph, he's trying to bring together the elite, the leaders, and the common people. He's trying to remind the people, we are a great nation because we the people, each and every one of us, we are special people, we are determined people, faithful to the ideals of our forebears, that is the founding fathers, those who sailed from UK to New England on Mayflower to establish the first 13 colonies, and true to our founding documents. The founding documents naturally are the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence.